Welcome to the PBAT's Inside Athletic Training Podcast. On this week's episode, we welcome in Nick Jensen, the Director of Player Health for the Milwaukee Brewers. Previously, Nick spent time as the Brewers minor league medical coordinator, and before that, spent time in the Atlanta Braves, Kansas City Royals, Cleveland Guardians, and New York Yankees organizations. Enjoy the show. All right, Nick, welcome to Inside Athletic Training. Super excited to have you on the show for episode 72. Appreciate you coming on for your second appearance on the show. For those who missed episode 9 with Nick, Nick is currently the Director of Player Health for the Milwaukee Brewers after spending last season as the minor league medical coordinator. I want to start today's show by getting a rundown from you on your first year in your new position with the Brewers. As I mentioned, last year was a big role with the club as well, but I'm sure things have gotten even more busy and crazy, especially at this time of year. So let's talk a bit about that. Starting out, just explain the Director of Player Health role and kind of the duties and responsibilities for someone in your position.
Sweet. Yeah, I appreciate that, Sam. It's awesome to be on for a second time. Like you said, Director of Player Health here at the Milwaukee Brewers. I think the biggest thing, the caveat is this role is different in other organizations. I like to say each org kind of has the role planned out to what fits the need of the organization at the time. And so essentially my role is I assume the same role as the minor league medical coordinator, which is what I was earlier. And then basically now my role is I oversee rehab department, as well as I basically have my hands in larger organization initiatives. And so now it just feels like I'm a little bit more part of like the decision makers, right? And a little more involved with the care from the rehab staff, from ACL all the way to AAA, as well as some stuff that hopefully impacts the major league club when we look at like an organization initiative. And we have to go into each one of those, but essentially ways that we can impact value from the minor league players and hopefully have them eventually impact the major league club.
Awesome. And I know the minor league coordinator role, you're overseeing and managing and talking to affiliates constantly. Are there new people that you're managing or overseeing in this new role as Director of Player Health with the Brewers?
Yeah. I have 2 physical therapists that I oversee, as well as, depending on the month, insert however many interns we have with the rehab staff as well. So looking at it, we have 6 full-time athletic trainers with 4 associate certified athletic trainers on top of 2 physical therapists and interns. So I am at 8 full-time staff plus or minus extra interns. So anywhere from like 8 to 12 is pretty much what I work with on a yearly basis now.
Gotcha. Awesome. So in terms of communicating kind of the other way, not saying anyone's superior to the other, but up to the big club in Milwaukee with Scott Behringer and him leading the staff there, is he the guy who you communicate most with in terms of the structure of the sports performance team in Milwaukee? Or are there other people, Frank Neville or who's with you, or, other people at the big league level that you're communicating with mostly?
Yeah. So we have a large organization here with a lot of different entities. I would say on the player performance side, my direct report is Blair Bundy. He's our vice president of player performance, and essentially he oversees so this was his role previously, but he maintained the oversight of the major league club as well. And so if I'll directly talk with Behringer, and we talk pretty frequently, but I will talk with him more often when it's a 40-man player, it's a major league rehab, or anything that might impact the major league club, or anything that we feel is important. But essentially, I am on different Slack channels and WhatsApps and you name it with essentially Blair Bundy and a bunch of other vice presidents and like assistant GMs that want to know or need to know information in regards to player status for travel, player development, anything along those lines that any decisions are made. So a lot of people that I talk to on a daily basis, I would say, but yeah, Scott and I do talk pretty frequently.
And to piggyback off that a little bit, you have your hands on, like you said, from the lowest affiliates to probably instructional league, DR, all the way up to the big league club. How much of your time do you think is spent with working on or with guys on the 40 man versus minor league work at this point? Or maybe it just depends on like the what's going on within the organization health wise.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So if the player is technically in the minor leagues, the direct report for that player would be me.
Okay.
And I can help communicate that from a hands-on standpoint, unless they are in rehab here in Phoenix, which is where I'm based out of. Like we have, I want to say, a couple players on the roster right now that are down here. I'll help out, but essentially, like we have a really good physical therapy staff, and I trust them with all decisions and when it comes to these. But like I said earlier, I kind of have the final oversight. So I'm there on a daily basis to kind of oversee and communicate what's happening with the case. But my hands-on is a little bit less than it has been previously as like an affiliate athletic trainer. Sure. But you always find ways to sneak it in and kind of not lose those skills.
Yeah, no, that's interesting to hear that from you. You've made a ton of progress in your career, but still, most would say on the younger side, just age wise, not experienced by any means. I spoke with Brad Pearson of the Red Sox a handful of months ago, and he's been in the league for decades. And he mentioned that he misses his hands being sore at the end of the day from working with players. Is that something that you're finding? You wish you were doing more, or are you gravitating toward like the work you're doing now, less hands-on? What's kind of your feeling on that at this point in your career?
Yeah, this is a really good topic because I'm trying to think where best to start. So spring training is like a spring training for my hands.
Okay. Yeah.
Because there'll be a lot more players coming in, and I don't work on as many guys as I used to. So it is really useful for me to have to get out there, quote unquote, get my hands dirty so that I don't have that soreness that I'm used to, because I could do manual therapy for days back when I was at the affiliate. The only difference now that is, you get that immediate feedback of helping a player, which is great. The really cool aspect now is I get to see our staff develop, and I get to see our staff make, I'm trying to think the best way of putting this, but essentially make better decisions, ask better questions, view the body a little differently, or at least not make the same mistakes they've had in the past. And I think there's a lot to be said about that, where it's a really cool experience to see that aspect of it, where I think that's where I kind of get some of my gratitude now versus the immediate hands-on. But yes, I'm me, like I'm always trying to learn something new, and I am essentially, my hands-on skills now are to show the staff here, hey, he still got it, but also, hey, have you tried this? And maybe a different manual therapy technique that they're not aware of. And as long as it helps impact the rehab player or our current ACL, or even if I'm at the affiliates to help out, that's all that matters at the end of the day. So it's I do miss the hands-on aspect, but I guess now my hands are more sore from typing on the keyboard than they are the actual body.
Like most of us. Yeah, that makes total sense. Now that you're kind of like you're in a key role with the club, you've grinded through the minor leagues, like you mentioned, affiliate level stuff. What's it like in your mind, leading such a big team of those people at the affiliates? Was it something you wanted to do when you broke in, or did you see yourself kind of being more hands-on? I know jobs and roles in this profession change drastically all the time, but kind of reflecting on the progress you've made, what's it like, being the guy who's giving the lessons at this point?
It's kind of like I said before, it's super rewarding for me now. I've learned I really like teaching, and I really like that aha moment you can see in someone's eyes when you show them a technique, or you show them an exercise, or did you check this out? And then they realize like instantly, like, dang, I should have did that. Right. I think that aspect is really cool. I want to say where I'm at now, to where I was, 4 or 5 years ago when I first entered in with the Brewers is completely different. And this could be a very long conversation too, but like looking back at the type of leader I was 4 or 5 years ago to the leader I am now, I'm pretty proud where I am. And you look back like, okay, at the affiliates, did I ever see myself in this position? And I don't think I ever did. I honestly didn't even know this was a role, because when I was with the Braves, I don't believe we had a director at the time. I could be mistaken, but also goes to show like you are just blinders on. You're at the affiliate. I just need to do a good job here. versus now I really enjoy the aspect of, kind of like I alluded to before, of seeing the change in the practitioners, the change in our therapists in asking questions, making better rehab decisions, better return to play protocols. And, we're going to make mistakes along the way, and it's going to be ones that we wish we did better, could get back. But I think as a whole, we are moving in a really cool direction, and it's definitely something I didn't expect to be into. I've, always just been passionate about athletic training and professional baseball and wanting to move up. So it's just been really nice to, be thought of in the light of, hey, we need someone for this position, and let's go ahead and let's have Nick for this job. So it's been really nice. And again, I wasn't expecting this role at the end of the day. I didn't know even it was available, but things work in mysterious ways.
Absolutely. You talked about leadership a bit. Some of the greatest leaders I've known within PBATs in my 15 some odd years working with you guys, I think of Roger Kaplinger at the Brewers. Straight shooter, good leader of men and women. You need someone to get something done. Roger, Dave Yeager comes to mind, Dan Wright, who used to be at the club, Scott Behringer, obviously doing it right now. Anyone in particular, maybe inside or even outside of the organization, who you credit with kind of guiding you toward learning to become a good leader? I know it's not inherent in all of us. It's quite a learned skill, I think, from experience. But is there anyone that kind of like really showed you the ropes with regard to leading a team?
Yeah. So I think all people who have impacted my life just in general, from, and I think I mentioned this in the last podcast, essentially from, Zach Womack with ECU was kind of my first introduction into baseball. And then along the way, you meet some really cool people. And, there's a saying here, I'm probably butchering it, but when the pupil's ready, the master will appear, something along those lines. Right.
Yeah.
And so there's been certain times at each phase of my career that a certain person has, I want to say, like, rung louder.
Gotcha.
So when I was let's go with the Braves. When I was at the Braves, Andrew Hauser was a huge mentor of mine, and someone I still talk to as frequently as our schedules will allow. Joe Metz was another one. And so they kind of helped me. Like, they came into a place where they were trying to build something. And so I gathered some of the leadership qualities that they had. And then, like you alluded to, Behringer, Dave Yeager, Roger Kaplinger, when I came over to the Brewers, and they were instrumental in, seeing what's been done here, the expectations, not holding on to mediocrity, and basically how, trying to live up to the person that I think they knew I could be, but also that I knew that was, still inside. So besides that, I also credit my wife as well, because
of course
there's I probably would get yelled at if I didn't, but also she's very emotionally intelligent. And I think that's helped me be a better leader, where I can come home and digress, like get that mental stress out, and then kind of talk something out loud, and then figure out how do I attack it, the following day, or is there a better way that I can lead this person from that lens? So I don't have one particular person in mind, and there's a ton of podcasts I listen to as well that I also enjoy, because I'm a pretty avid podcast listener, just like this one. So I'll listen to one on the way to work, usually on the way to work and home. But overall, the person comes out when you're most ready and receptive to hearing it. So I think to be included in the names of the people that you mentioned is pretty cool. So they've all been instrumental in helping me.
Yeah. And I'm sure now in your position, you're going to be that guy for somebody else, which is probably crazy to think about.
Very crazy
but definitely it comes full circle for sure. Getting more into to your actual role now. Like you said, there's so many new positions within athletic training and sports medicine that have been created probably in the last decade, last 5 years. Looking back at staffs, even a decade ago, it might've been like, two guys, a head and an assistant doing everything. So within your current role, director of player health, a title probably less common than a head athletic trainer or an assistant at the big league level. Walk us through, I know there's no normal day. It's a stupid question to ask you guys, but walk us through a day during the season for someone in your position.
Yeah. In season, I'm pretty much up by 6:30 every day, Arizona time. Get a little workout in myself, or just kind of prep for the day. Usually it's responding to some emails, responding to something I've missed on Slack or WhatsApp that requires my attention. We have different platforms. I'm sure other orgs can kind of relate to this. But for like return to play documents, I need to update anything that we might have so that our front office has a better picture of when players are available or if any decisions need to be made in roster standpoint. Other than that, I tend to do a check-in here with probably all the players and the rehab staff and the ACL staff that's down here and athletic trainers. Basically just do my Roger calls them coffee walks, but I don't drink coffee, so I kind of just walk around and just touch base with everybody, check in, see how they're doing, see if I have an idea of where I can help. Then usually it'll be okay, like what do I have to check in today with one of the affiliates? So for instance, today I knew a player in one of our affiliates was going to go follow up with a physician, so I just sent out a feeler like, hey, keep me posted when this player gets seen. What time should I expect? Basically a follow up, just so I have all the information I can get. Mm-hmm. That is typically how it goes, and then there'll be some other aspects where there's always meetings involved with other departments, some of the initiative stuff we were talking about. But on top of that, I will put in work on some of that stuff where we use a data, like other databases, like teams have used Kinduct in the past. We use another one called Smartabase. But essentially, you check that. You can do a quick monitor of a specific player or team, because in my role, I'm always getting questions on specific players, whether it's from like the pitching side or player development side of, hey, what's this person's workload, or like what should it be moving forward in the next week or two, or can this person handle X, Y, or Z, or it's thinking of moving this player up to AAA. Is there anything on your end that you would have any hesitancy if we move up sooner than later, right? And so I tend to do a quick sweep of all our online documents, and then is there anything missing or that I don't have the full picture or anything I want clarity on, I will call the athletic trainer and kind of just have a quick chat, also to include them so that they can keep that in the back of their mind when treating or communicating an issue with that player. Besides that, it's kind of as needed. So for instance, today, as an example, I was we were thinking about this talk we were going to have and about like what my day-to-day would be. And it was funny because it literally came true, where some days you don't know what's going to happen. And we had a medical issue pop up that essentially required a lot of my time for communicating with physicians and setting emails up and kind of trying to set up diagnostics. And that'll take a bulk of your time. And then from there, you have to communicate that out to any of the superiors and higher ups that just need to be made aware. So little things like that will pop up, and that kind of supersedes anything else at the moment. Otherwise, you just kind of see what's needed, and then you almost play the waiting game. You see once games start. So today's a Monday. There's not going to be any full season affiliates playing today. Yeah. So I wait until the games start. You'll check in randomly. You'll get an update. Hey, so and so just got hit, staying in game. At least it keeps me aware. I got a really good staff that keep me posted on a lot of stuff. So I feel like I have my finger in the pulse of a lot of issues, and nothing, same like I want to do for Behringer, where I want no surprises coming his way or my boss, Blair Bundy, vice versa. They understand, my staff understands that, and they reciprocate, where I'll know something more often faster than, anyone else, just because of the sheer, like, hey, just send Nick a quick text, see what's going on, any issues we can make do with it. But that's the day to day. And sometimes it's slow. Sometimes there's not enough hours in the day to get caught up.
That's super interesting. I don't think people realize how much information you're getting, you're sifting through, and the real time aspect of all you guys getting that information. So as the director of player health, I know Blair Bundy, who's the vice president of player health and performance of the Brewers, held that role previously. Talk about, your work with Blair, how the role has changed since you're making it your own, and also the benefit of having someone who was in the role before you, who you work closely with.
Yeah, just like anybody, right? You get a new role, you'll put your own spin, your own nuance on it. Mm-hmm. So Blair's role now essentially oversees a couple different departments all under one umbrella. And I'm very fortunate where I feel like I'm doing a good enough job where he doesn't have to watch over me all the time, and just kind of, but you build that, right? I didn't have the same trust of day one coming in as you do, fifth year. So I think how I've made it different myself is just the development process that we go through for our full-time staff, as well as we've developed education curriculum for our associates. So I've kind of added my spin to trying to be the best leader I could to them, and let them develop into the clinician and athletic trainer that they want to be. Besides that, I'm probably more hands-on with other directors and coordinators where we're talking more frequently on, whether it be workload, whether it be bat speed, whether it be pitch design, something along those lines, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or anything in the minutia. And Blair doesn't have the time to dig into the minutia there, whereas
Yeah.
I do, and I can kind of collate all the information and just report back the probably higher level info for him in case he's asked by, Matt Arnold, our GM, or anybody else. But yeah, we all put our own spin on it, and at the end of the day, just try and do the best job I can to support our organization and support anyone that I need to communicate with.
Yeah. No, I definitely I get a sense that communication in your position and anyone's position, how you present information, is one of the key skills in athletic training, and especially in someone directing player health like you, and then leading up to Blair and the guys to big league level. So cool to hear your spin on
Yeah.
that. Another thing I'm kind of interested to hear you talk about is the recent MLB draft and the combine. We know this is relatively new. The process is improving year over year. Talk a bit about your experience with the draft and the draft combine, how that work falls within your staff and the structure with the Brewers, and just kind of what that process is like for you.
Yeah, you got it. So I will say I'm probably more on the back end of this process,
Mm-hmm.
especially for the draft. Frank Neville, Matt Deal, they do a tremendous amount of work on the front end of basically grading each player from a health risk standpoint, so that when deciding to, do we go with player A versus player B, if there's a higher risk from a medical standpoint, they might go with one versus the other. But on the front end, they do a ton of the work, set up the physical, set up the the baseline imaging, everything else that basically goes into, essentially it's a physical, right, that we do at the beginning of the spring training.
Mm-hmm.
And we just do this now out in July. So my involvement, at least with the draft, is more so on the back end of, I do need to know orthopedically, medically, what's going on with them so that I can help devise a plan moving forward. But same thing here is we do a pretty comprehensive physical, including the MRI, like I said. So I take all that information into account. We develop any sort of flags that we deem as, increased risk for injury.
Okay.
As well as taking their workload into account, so that when I do talk to the player development staff, kind of like you said before about the communication, there's a clear purpose of this player where we will have a slower on ramp for their throwing program and bullpens and back to games based off of the previous workload, the current findings on either the diagnostic imaging that we did as well as the physical. And then we take those pieces and come up with a plan where we slow play someone's return to throw, or vice versa. If it's a position player, we would slow play them getting back into games. So that's pretty much where I have the larger impact. And so on the back end there. And then as you basically talked about too, the free agent pool, basically, like if we're going to do any trade deadline stuff and pick anybody up, I am heavily involved. Like we talked about the EMR, and I make sure ahead of time that essentially we never want a trade to be held up because of a missing piece of documentation, whether it be important or not important. Mm-hmm. I think at the end of the day, we just want to make sure it's a complete picture of this athlete.
Yep.
And so I'll work with Matt Deal, and he and I kind of scour the, we create and run a report. MLB also sends it in of, hey, these are things you're missing. I like to think we're one of the better and have that standard of, I went to the Roger Kaplinger EMR boot camp here. So
that's a good one.
Yeah. So I basically have to maintain it. But on top of that, right, like we really do want this to be a full medical piece. And if, the fact that I didn't get any calls to say, hey, where's this piece of information, or we need this, or we're thinking about trading so-and-so, can you make sure that everything's up to date? The fact that I didn't have any of those is probably a really good thing. And that allowed our organization to hopefully make, worthwhile changes that they felt were important. So that's where I'm at. I think that's maybe a different take on the back end of it, but it's also, what I do as under my role. And again, other orgs might have different roles for their director and be more heavily involved in the front end. But I guess that's kind of a peek behind the curtain of what I do on the back end here.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting. And for those out there who might be wondering, EMR is electronic medical records, and it's a system that Roger Kaplinger was extremely influential not perfecting, not saying it's perfect, but just a great system that Roger really pushed forward over the years. And on that note, Nick, things have changed a ton on the EMR. Access to information, access to medical records for potential draft picks, free agents, stuff like that. Take us back to the earlier days in your career and what you know about the EMR, and talk about how impactful and positive the changes have been as things innovate.
Yeah. So I guess for reference, this is my ninth total season. Thinking about it, I was like, dang, already been almost a decade. But yeah, things definitely changed. And I think, I've always tried to be as direct with this as I could be, where I get everything, all the documentation, the reports, the diagnostics, everything that goes involved with injuries to be placed into the EMR. I do think the standards have been raised since I have first gotten.
Yeah, it's a good way to say it.
Because not even I mean standards even from like the MLB perspective.
Yeah.
From Kevin Ma and the rest of Helen Casey and the rest of the group, where the baseline for what's the best way of putting that, right? Like just the baseline for EMR, like this is what's needed.
Yeah.
Minimum guidelines. Thank you.
Sure.
So like the minimum guidelines, I feel like have gotten better as well, from a sense of it's creating a better playing field for every team to meet, as well as, right, like this is the first year I've really seen more psych stuff be added on to the EMR, which is again a more comprehensive aspect of their of the player status. And so I think it's important. I think we're moving in the right direction. There's probably going to be more that is going to be added, but right now, I think I know I'm inputting a lot more than I used to, and trying to be a little more thorough. And I think our group does a really good job here with that.
Yeah. Another key point in the season that just passed that you mentioned is the trade deadline. Always an exciting time for fans, that is. For you guys, I know it's crazy busy. As a director of player health for the Brewers, a team that's always in the mix and has been very successful as of late. What does that week look like for you, or weeks leading up to the trade deadline? What does that time of year mean for you and your position?
It means be by your computer until the clock ticks, 6 p.m. Eastern time or whatever it is. But for me, like I said before, I get with Matt Deal and myself, and we basically scour the EMR, see what kind of piece of information we might be missing. Then we either attempt to get it ourselves and follow up with physicians, or get MRI reports, whatever might be needed. Or we follow up with our affiliate staff and try and get them to, get specific records. So for instance, we had to have someone go get imaging, diagnostic report, as well as like the hospital report from someone on an away game. Right. And so like, that's going to be generally harder to get than something when you're home. So just trying to nudge our staff to get everything ahead of time. Again, really just be available in case something is needed. It's kind of like a hurry up and wait type mentality. But when our front office deems we need a catcher, and we're looking at X, Y, or Z, and we're probably going to trade these two guys, like these two guys are on the chopping block, more or less, from like a trade standpoint, which is good from a value standpoint that we can make that offer. Then that's something I need to make sure, if there's any medical information surrounding him or any current maintenance programs, or if they're dealing with something at that time, that I can communicate that appropriately, so that there is no hesitations when trading a player, or there's, the front office has all the pieces of information they need to make that decision. So it's really just trying to think ahead, specific players that, you catch wind of that might be traded, versus, how do I equip my staff with the best, most up-to-date knowledge, so that they can they can treat this person a specific way, so they can get this person prepared to be traded in a couple weeks, whatever it might be, right? And so, end of the day, it just comes to trying to help my staff have the information that they have, and for me to be available and hope that I don't have to be reactionary, and hope that we've done a good job on the front end.
Yeah, preparation definitely is a common theme in this conversation. So it's cool to hear you talk about that a bit. Well, Nick, you've been with the Brewers for nearly 5 years now. The team in those years has been incredibly successful on the field, the big league club. Um, you guys are leading the Central Division right now. So many clubs are out of it by this point. Talk about your position, working with the affiliates and with the big league staff on a contending team. Does that impact mood day to day for your staff? Does that, include a bit more enthusiasm for what you guys are doing, kind of as we approach an eventual hopeful playoff run for the Brewers?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is like there's a lot of pride in this organization. I think
Yeah.
a little bit of almost a chip on our shoulder, right? Like we have to develop players and develop a system
Yeah.
because we can't go out and buy an A-level player at every position.
Yep.
So I think that's really cool. The fact that we take so much pride in that, and yeah, winning's fun. Like you get more benefits like monetarily from I think for your department when you do win and the owners and front office are happy. Whereas, yeah, maybe we do need this extra AT staff member to help out with X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
Because look, it this is how it can impact maybe a future playoff win. So I think that's really a good sign. And in general, just to see our minor leagues also starting to win a lot more. And I know they're moving up on the ranks of one of the better farm systems as well, which is super impressive. And so I think we have two teams right now that are in playoff contentions or have locked playoff positions already. So that's really cool to see, and it's great for the staff and great for the players to be part of something like that, to see what winning's like, because winning at a minor league level is much different than winning at a big league level.
Yeah.
So I think just sharing a piece of what that looks like and, hopefully contributing to a major league win one day would be fantastic. But yeah, like winning's great. And I think the more we have a winning culture, hopefully it moves up to the major league level. And again, if there's positions or staffs or ways that we feel this will impact the major league club for wins, I think the front office and ownership can get behind that. And that's generally what it's about, right? Like saving days lost, saving the organization dollars and winning major league games. So however we can do that the best, I think is great. So yeah, there's a lot of pride here, and I can definitely say I will be celebrating in Milwaukee if and when we go to the playoffs. So yeah, we shall see.
Yeah, no, we're all hoping for that too. You talked about the development process, and I know listeners out there know Milwaukee is a smaller market team. Development remains huge because that's what you have to do to compete. Draft well, develop, keep people healthy, which is one of the coolest parts about the athletic training profession is you guys really have an impact on winning. But back to the development process, you work with guys as they come up through the minor league ranks. What's it like seeing people you may have monitored in the draft or seen right after the draft work their way up and get to the big leagues and actually impact winning in Milwaukee? What's that feeling like for an athletic trainer?
It's awesome. And I think it depends where you've been invested with that player. So
sure.
I can't speak as much now as I could back when I was the affiliate. And I think it was really cool. Back when I was with the Braves, I would have, there's some big league players now that I had from GCL to low A to triple A, and then you get to see them make the call up, and they never come back. And I think to be part of that process is extremely impactful, just to know like you've had a role in that. You've kept that player available, kept that player healthy to express their athleticism and their talent. And I think that part is really cool just to be part of that. And that's the kind of stuff on behind the scenes of, there's always that one player is making the big league roster, but there's a plethora of people behind him helping and assisting. And, where I'm at now, it all starts from, we do our best to draft, hopefully the best talent we can get. We do our best in the minor leagues and player development staff to develop that player to have a chance to move up and a chance to make the major league squad and hopefully continue winning and impact. So when you have guys like Jackson Churio, where you've seen him a couple of years ago, and next thing he's I want to say he's batting like close to 300 this past month. Like he's on a tear. Yeah. And it's just really cool to see those guys who our organization has full trust in, and they play him every day, and he puts the work in, and it's showing. So I think it's really cool to see some of those guys. Like I've got a player I worked with on rehab that just got the call up to AAA, and so he's gone from I think this is his third level this year. So it's really cool for me personally. Like that was a really awesome stint to see. And just like others, like I know our group, you develop a relationship with these players, no matter what affiliate you're at, to speak for our athletic trainers. And when you see them move up, it's kind of like a proud papa, right? Like
Yeah, for sure.
You see them grow wings, and hopefully they don't come back, they don't go back to you, and they continue moving on towards their dream as well. So it's a really cool process.
And the process is different, but obviously there's development for yourself and for athletic trainers as well, moving up the ranks and into positions like you have now. Reflecting on your internships with the Yankees, Indians, now Guardians, and the Royals, did you imagine? Obviously you have confidence in your ability. That's key. Did you imagine your first day on the job with the Yankees or, back then, getting to a position you're in now, or when you reflect back, like what's your attitude as you look back at those times?
I can definitely appreciate this question because it keeps you grounded a little bit, right? Like you don't know where you're going unless you know where you're from. And it's been really cool to see, like I was like Scott DeFrancesco, that's someone who was a mentor of mine, my first ever internship with the Trenton Thunder, the AA for the Yankees at the time. And so, no, I don't think I even knew this role existed. I think I knew in some capacity I was, I had this fire in me that I'm going to get to the major leagues one day. And then you start learning more of like, okay, now which position in the major leagues? Head athletic trainer, assistant, second assistant, right? Like you can go physical therapy route. Like there's all these different avenues you can do to impact the club. And I think taking the coordinator role and the now director, it's pretty cool to have the impact where, like I said before, you see the development of your staff. But I want to say that, back then, no, I had no idea what you want to do. I think, and maybe this is probably a good point, and I think talking out loud here is kind of talking to myself. We can get stressed by thinking too far into the future and holding on to something so strongly that you forget how much of an impact you can make where to be where your feet are right now. And so I think that's a really important aspect where you can hold on to something too tightly and not get there because you stress yourself out, you get burnout, you give up essentially because you're not getting somewhere where you want to in a fast enough time. But end of the day, if I can do the best job that I know I can, and I feel happy with the amount of work I put in that day from an effort standpoint, you hope good things happen. And I think that's, for me, I had the opportunity to get from the coordinator to the director role where, I at the time, I was not expecting it, but I'll happily accept the invite, and it's been a great ride ever since.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to explain it. Being malleable and open to what's next.
Yeah.
But ensuring you're putting in the work, to get to what might be. I think that's a great mindset for any younger athletic trainer. And that's kind of what I want to touch on in the show here today. A lot of our listeners are probably ready to head back to school, or it's an internship, or their final year as a graduate student, and eventually striving to be in a position like you're in, making a quick rise through the minor leagues to a key position in an organization. What's your best advice for someone who's back at school, listening to this, hoping to one day be in your position?
Yeah, so I kind of think of myself where I have in the same shoes as that person you just described. You don't really know where to go. You kind of feel lost, but end of the day, just like I alluded to previously, like you have to put the work in where it's not going to, the work's not going to do itself. If I'm not trying my hardest to learn, I'm not trying my hardest to connect with other athletic trainers and develop that skill set and that questioning ability, you're not going to get to where you want to. And I think finding a mentor to kind of latch onto is super important. And I know for myself, like I just got lucky with Zach Womack being at ECU. That kind of opened up the door for me. And then I started seeing, there's other people out there as well. And you connect with people like Scott DeFrancesco, like I mentioned, and others that I've had the opportunity to work with. But I also want to say, people are not as as mean as you think they are and scary, where
Sure.
it's okay to reach out and do a cold email, finding somebody that you think you'll connect with and trying to develop a mentor-mentee relationship of, like I know for me, I had somebody from a major league team walk into the doors one day of University of Delaware, and they were a huge mentor of mine at the time. And I got their email address and their phone number, and I think probably on schedule every 2 weeks I sent a question, and I sent a phone. We had an event which led to phone calls, which led to him telling me to, hey, go ahead and send me a hard drive. And I was like, oh, I got a small one here, like 16 gigabytes. And he goes, no, send me a terabyte. So I had to go out. I had to go out and buy like a memory drive to send to him, and he put all this stuff on his hard drive that was new to me, and kind of sparked that education piece of, holy cow, there's a lot out there I don't know. And so that was a really cool experience for me as someone who didn't know where I was going to go. Like I was at Delaware and working through, with baseball team as a grad assistant. And it was just a really cool opportunity that just fell at my lap. But I want to use that as an example, because I'm sure there are other students out there, other athletic trainers who have a favorite team, or have heard somebody, an athletic trainer, physical therapist, somebody talk on a podcast where they really gravitated towards them.
Yeah.
And I'm here to say, go ahead and just try and do a cold email, try and reach out. And I think I will say it's a double-edged sword, because if you reach out one time and then never talk to again, it's kind of like, oh, if maybe I feel used, right? Sure. Versus it needs to come authentically and genuine. And if you are that person that wants to grow and develop, there's no person out there I feel like that would turn that person down. Mm-hmm. So that's probably my best advice. Work hard, find mentors, and just be happy with the work you're putting in every day.
Yeah, that's awesome advice. I think the persistence that you mentioned there, staying on top of things and not being afraid to go get what you want. I mean, there's a lot of people who would dream of being in a position working for a big league club in any capacity, and you got to go out and get it. So that's it's cool to hear you guys are open to that, and people in your position are obviously willing to help. So awesome news for students out there. Well, Nick, really appreciate you coming on again. Always great to talk to you about the profession, PBATs, and athletic training. And we wish you and your staff nothing but the best of luck the rest of the way.
Appreciate that, sir. Thanks again. Good talk.
Thank you for listening to the PBATs Inside Athletic Training Podcast. For more information about PBATs, athletic training, and sports medicine, please visit pbats.com.